It's weird how nights like this are dynamic because all the expectation setting going in go out the window when you have a prolonged evening like this. So where it was all Santorum had to win to Ohio to keep going on, he now has made this close enough all night that does the conventional wisdom shift here that Mitt Romney had a weaker night, even if he ekes out this Ohio victory, than he needed to shut this down.
Yeah, I think Mitt Romney definitely had a weaker night, and I think Rick Santorum had a stronger night than they expected, and Mitt Romney had a weaker night than they expected. And I think, as you're right, the dynamics of these days going into it, if a week ago or 5 days ago you had said this result, and the Rick Santorum folks would roll their eyes and said, bad for us. But throughout the day, as this developed, it became actually a good night. Even if he ends up losing Ohio, a good night for Rick Santorum. To me, what it means is Rick Santorum is in this race till June. He is not getting out of this race. He has a potential to win a number of these contests going ahead. You saw what happened in Tennessee, as y'all talked about. I think this is a good night for Rick Santorum.
So what does he do with all of this momentum, Matt? He goes in and he could do the states coming up next week and over the weekend, Kansas, Alabama.
He'll win Kansas. Mike Huckabee won Kansas. He'll win Kansas. It was the last state that Mike Huckabee ran. He'll probably win Alabama and Mississippi. He'll probably put together a series of victories, and he'll gain some momentum. As we all know, the delegate math is almost impossible for him. And even on a bad night for Mitt Romney, he expanded his delegate lead. But I think what he's going to prove is that he can go make weaken Mitt Romney along the way. By the time you get to the end of this process, he wants people to say, can we really nominate this guy?
Well, is he doing this for personal? I mean, I know none of us are getting into Rick Santorum's mind now, but if you were, as you're watching him, what do you think he wants as the end game in this?
Well, I think you have to, Rick Santorum, for all of us, you got to give him some credit. This guy has now won in the Midwest, he's won in the West, and he's won in the South. He's actually demonstrated as good of demographic and geographic strength as anybody in this race. He's performed much better than Mike Huckabee did last time. And so I think he's in this race now. I think in his head, he thinks that if he can keep Mitt Romney below 1144, he has the potential, if he wins out and starts winning going forward, to be the nominee.
Okay, but as recently as this week, this weekend on Sunday, you said, Mitt Romney's the likely nominee here. Did anything happen tonight to make you think that Mitt Romney, which I know you didn't always necessarily think throughout this whole process, but did anything make you change your mind tonight? That is Mitt Romney any less likely of the nominee tonight?
I think that he's probably not less likely of the nominee, but it's probably a much more complicated process to get to be the nominee after tonight.
So then begs my next question. What does Mitt Romney do now? He so desperately wants to focus on the president and begin this one-on-one conversation. I thought I saw, I tweeted this a little earlier, I thought I saw it's like the 5 stages of grief, and I think he came to acceptance tonight about how long of a race this is going to be, and yet he needs to change up something to be able to keep Santorum further and further at bay, does he not? And what is that?
This is one of the things in a campaign. When you're involved in a campaign, this is one of the things. And the argument always goes in this way. Somebody comes in and says, strategically, we need to make adjustments in this. And the tactical people say, no, if we just keep it going tactically. And they're going to send to all of us Excel spreadsheets, same with the delegate math and all of that. I think they need to make some fundamental strategic changes in this. They need to sort of take a look and say, how have we been presenting Mitt Romney and what have we been doing and has it been the right thing? I don't think they'll do that. I think they're going to go back to a series of tactical things. They're going to say, how many pieces of direct mail can we send out? What are the number of ads we can do? What does the math look like? What endorsements we get? I think they're going to continue on this tactical incremental approach, and it's just going to cause this process to go all the way to June.
But Matt, do they have a choice? I mean, this is their candidate, right? And the candidate has strengths and candidate has weaknesses. We know what his weaknesses are, which is this real seeming inability to connect with folks or to get the base excited. So is there any other path for him to take other than just grind it out one delegate at a time?
I think they need to go back and say, listen, this is who this guy is. He's a business guy. He's a CEO. You put him back in a suit. Basically say, this is who the guy is. He's not going to warm you up. He's not going to get mustard on his sleeve. This is who he is. Present PowerPoint charts or whatever it happens to be. Just be the guy he was at Bain and say, that's who I am. I'm the fixer. I'm the fixer. I'm the business fixer. If you want somebody inspirational and all that kind of stuff, or you want the regular guy Santorum, or you want the inspirational guy Barack Obama, I'm the fixer.
That? You don't think he's been saying that?
No, what he's been doing, he's been counter-programming himself all the way. He goes and says, I'm this guy, and then he shows up in jeans and say, I'm just like you, I'm just like you. He ought to get out of that and become the business guy and stay like that.
And for somebody who knows how to wear jeans, that's a big statement.
I tell people this a bunch when I talk to them about Romney. I saw him give a PowerPoint presentation in 2006. He was governor still at AEI, conservative think tank in Washington, on teacher reform and battling the teachers union in Massachusetts. It was one of the most compelling moments I've ever seen a politician. He mastered his subject material. He gave this entire PowerPoint presentation. There's nothing sexy to it, except that he was in total command of him and what he was presenting in a way that I did not see in the '08 presidential campaign, in a way that I have not seen in this presidential campaign. And I know that competence like that is not sexy, and the word competence is like, oh, that's what Dukakis sold and what have you. But there is something that would be appealing to voters to see a candidate totally in his natural habitat.
Well, that's the problem, David. You hit about the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is that he's not like the working class guys out there or gals out there. The problem is that he comes across as inauthentic or genuine. And every time he does all these things to try to make him something he's not, it sends a signal of we can't trust this guy. It's not who he is. If he were just that guy that all of us would say, yeah, that's Mitt Romney. He's kind of boring and all that, but at least he's competent, knows what he's doing. He would at least finally convey an authentic side to him that the voters haven't seen.
The one tough nerd, right? Yeah. He should go back to that person.
Like the guy, the governor of Michigan.
Right, that was his message, is I'm nerdy. And when you listen to him speak, I mean, it's quite remarkable. Everything about him comes across as nerdy. All right, so Rick Santorum now, he goes now into this weekend with a lot of wind at his back. What about this guy? I don't know if you've noticed this, by the way, our high-tech thing here.
I've seen this.
Newt Gingrich still provides a roadblock, though, for Rick Santorum in terms of delegates able to gain, and he still splits up that very conservative vote, that evangelical vote in some places too.
I agree with that, but I think that when you look at the vote totals outside, I think what's going to happen with Newt Gingrich is his support is going to slowly diminish, and I think the voters are going to figure out this is a two-person race, and if we cast a vote for Newt Gingrich, we're wasting a vote. I think that's going to slowly happen. As you said, the stages of grief for Mitt Romney, he's probably finally now in the stage of acceptance. I think Newt Gingrich has been campaigning in the state of denial for a period of time, and he may continue to campaign in the state of denial. But I think what's going to happen is the voters are going to start saying, listen, this really is Rick Santorum. If Rick Santorum wins Kansas and win a couple other states, there's really nowhere for Newt Gingrich to go. He may not have the capacity to get out this mentally or whatever it happens to be, or emotionally, but I think what the voters are going to do is finally going to become at some point soon a two-person race.
This is a question I had posed to George and Diane earlier, and Amy, we chatted with them about this. I know that the Obama campaign and the folks at the White House are loving this protracted Republican race. They see it doing damage to the party's brand. They are very pleased with how this is going. But you sensed from the president today, you sensed from their campaign, they are ready and eager to begin a one-on-one conversation and start framing their narrative in that stark contrast for this fall. Is there any negative side for them, this protracted Republican race? Should they be as happy as they are to sit on the sidelines? Or do they need to somehow start introducing the president into a conversation that he's not in?
Well, I think the only negative downside for them, which has had a tendency to happen with this White House and sometimes other White Houses, is they can get a little arrogant and they can get a little protective of like their own thing. We're smart, we're all that, and that's when you make mistakes. When you're in the midst of a campaign fight and you're going out back and forth is when you operate at your best. But I think they could make some mistakes of arrogance along the way. It's like those crazy Republicans, look what they're doing. And then they do something. I think they'd rather be in that battle, so they don't do that. But you take a look at this, Mitt Romney may end up, if the delegate math moves forward, the weakest Republican nominee in a generation. And so they would much rather have that. They do have to be careful about arrogance, that they sit there and say, oh, we can't wait for they get them, and then make a mistake.
Right. All right, so what do the party bigwigs do tomorrow morning? Because they do not want this to drag out much longer either, right? I don't know if there's such thing as the establishment anymore. George Will has been telling us now for some time, there's no Republican establishment. But do people start standing up tomorrow? Do we see John Boehner? Do we see Jeb Bush say, it's been really fun, guys. It's nice, but it's over. So this is hurting not just our nominee, but it's hurting our brand, the Republican Party brand, and it could hurt down ballot.
I think even if he was able to convince them to do that, it's not going to stop this process from going forward. This is a party that has, to a large degree, become the party that nominated the witch in Delaware, that nominated the candidate that was so incompetent they couldn't beat Harry Reid, the majority leader, who was totally vulnerable. Right. This is a party that's now in charge of itself, not the establishment anymore. I said earlier, this is like, the establishment is like Dean Wormer, and the Animal House is in charge of the election cycle now. And that's where we are today. And it doesn't matter who comes up and says, I think it actually may have an adverse reaction.
That's probably
they
true.
may say, well, I don't even
There's
care.
no percentage in it for
all
them.
you guys
Right.
that have been doing this for a long time, we're in charge.
Yep.
This is what to me, the whole fascinating thing about the Tea Party, we've watched it. None of this should be a surprise to us, right? We watched the Tea Party ascendance in 2009. We watched how it fueled a ton of energy into the Republican Party in 2010, helped sweep 63 new House members into Congress and take the majority. So we saw this happening inside the Republican Party, and we all talked about, wow, this is going to be interesting for the 2012 presidential race. What the Tea Party didn't have is their own candidate here that they were able to fully coalesce around, but they had enough to completely, as you're saying, take the establishment out of the equation and weaken the eventual nominee.
Yeah, and then you have the problem that's gotten into the Republicans now. You have all that going on, and then you have this very weak front runner who a huge part of the Republican Party just does not trust. So you have this, the fraternity in charge of campus with a very weak front runner, and that combination has brought us what we have today.